I'm 8 weeks into driving the entire coast of mainland Scotland whilst living in my van, and for the first time on this road trip, the van itself is the problem, and it's stopped me in my tracks.
That is incredible.
Well folks, I have had a bit of a nightmare since I left you off in Perth in the last episode. My plan for this one was to start in Perth, see a couple of things and then head to my home city of Dundee. However, I took a few days off there just to catch up with some editing and stuff, and there's a problem with my leisure batteries, quite a big one. I did say in an earlier episode that with me only driving short distances to get to each location, 15-20 minutes and stuff like that, I'm not getting a good run of it charging with the split charge with the engine essentially, and I've found myself having to idle it more and more at night when I'm parked up and stuff just to try and get it charged. I'm obviously charging so many things, all my cameras, you know, I'm editing all the time on my laptop and things like that, so I'm using a lot of energy. And don't get me wrong, they're 5 years old. This van was originally built by a couple that travelled around 17 countries in Europe in it. So they're about 5 years old, these batteries, and they've been great. And it's a kind of homemade job that they've done. It's lithium LifePaw raw cells that they've got 4 of them to make up the 310 amp hours power, and a sort of homemade box for them to sit in to support them so they don't move, homemade heating pads and thermostat. It's like a fridge thermostat controller to turn them on and stuff like that. And they've been great, they've done well, but they haven't been performing the way that I would expect normally over the last few months, and I kind of saw this coming. But basically from when I left you off, literally from that night in Perth, I woke up to alarms going off in my bed, low voltage alarms, and the BMS basically shut down the battery. And I thought that was a bit odd, so obviously took it for a drive for a number of hours, got it sort of charged back up and that again, and I got it charged to around about 13 volts, and literally the same thing happened the next night. They're just not holding a charge anymore. I've had the voltmeter on them to check that they're still balanced, to check the voltages and things like that, and they're just gubbed, really. That's the reality of it. They're just dying. I mean, don't get me wrong, lithium LifePaw batteries, you can discharge them down to 10% and you won't damage them. Unlike a traditional lead acid leisure battery, which as soon as you take it below 50%, it damages them completely and that's them done. I have had it down to sort of 10%, and I actually had it slightly below once as well, but that was ages ago. Just pure accident from my part. And I don't know if that maybe did some damage back then or whatever, but they're just dying, unfortunately, and I cannot continue this road trip without them, because obviously they power my fridge, they power my lighting and all the rest of it. So I've had to be quite inventive about how I reduce my energy consumption over the last sort of couple of days. Thank goodness ages ago I bought these off Amazon, and these are just lights that you can charge with USB-C, and you just tap them and they go on. Obviously there's different colours. I like them for my parties because you can have them different colours, and they just stick up with a little magnet pad on the roof, and I've got them at the back as well, so I've just been using them at night. That's why it's dark in here right now, because it is during the day, but I've got a little bit of light coming through, but I'm trying not to use my lights and things like that. And I'm using my Blue Yeti a lot to try and keep everything charged over the last sort of couple of days. But again, I need to run the engine to charge that through the cigarette lighter, and I don't want to idle my engine too long. It's an old van, and it's not healthy for it, you know, unfortunately. And I don't have an electric hookup on this van. I just haven't needed it, to be perfectly honest. So I've had a decision to make. What do I do about it? Do I just buy 4 raw cells, which is relatively cheap? You know, you can get them for about 50 quid each. Maybe update my BMS system. It's just one of those Dali BMSs, like the Chinese sort of ones that they've got. Or do I fork out into my emergency fund and get like a proper lithium LifePo battery with the BMS and everything included? So I've made my choice. I have decided to buy a brand new one. It's quite, well, I'd say quite expensive. It's 1,100 quid, but actually for a battery that size, you'd have been over a 2 grand back when I bought this van over 3.5 years ago. I've also gone for a bigger one. It's 628 amp hours, so it's double the capacity of my current battery. Now, when I first got this van, my current battery, even in winter without the solar on the roof, would last me around about 5 days. I could get out of it before it went to sort of 30% left state of charge. So I've gone for a 628. So it's a big battery that I've gone for. I've measured up for it. It's going to fit in the back, no problem. But it's just going to give me that little bit of leeway, which means that, you know, it's probably going to last me about 9 or 10 days, even in winter, without the solar sort of being prevalent. But with it being winter, even when it's a bright, sunny, blue sky day in Scotland, the reality is that the sun doesn't actually get that high off the horizon. Certainly not really high enough to go above and really get the solar panels, you know, activated. So you don't get very much solar at this time of year. There's just not enough of it to keep everything charged, unfortunately. And so I've made the decision. I mean, this is my home at the end of the day. That's what the emergency fund is for. I can't function without having that power, essentially. So it needs changed out. And it would be no different if you were in a house and you needed to fork out a couple of grand for a new combi boiler or whatever. For me, I need that. I need that for my boiler. I need that for my lighting. I need that for basically all my energy, essentially. So that's what I've decided to do. I've got a few days to wait. Obviously, I've just ordered it. It's going to take a few days to get here. Fingers crossed it arrives on time. It will need to go through sort of dangerous goods checks and things like that. So hopefully it gets here on time, and then I can get started again on this road trip once I've taken the old battery out and fitted the new one. We've got a little bit of time to wait. Like I said, I'm going to do a bit of editing, and then I've decided I'm going to cook myself some homemade chicken curry and fried rice. So let's skip to that part first. Well, I've been maximising my time that I've got in the van. I've done quite a lot of editing. I've managed to edit a YouTube episode. Well, finished it today. So I've been at that for a good 8 hours. But I am hungry now, and I'm going to attempt to cook myself a sort of Chinese chicken curry, if you like. I've got the chicken, got the Chinese concentrate, the sort of curry paste you add boiling water to, some mushrooms, I got some sugar snap peas, onion, and I've got rice just to boil up first, and then I'll get the heat on my big frying pan, drop an egg in it with some oil, add the rice and just a little bit of soy sauce, nothing fancy, and just fry that rice up as well. We'll see how it goes. It is delicious. I wouldn't usually put sugar snap peas in them, but it's actually quite nice. You get a nice crunch out of them. And I just wanted something green in there, so I'm getting my veg. It's delicious, that sauce is lovely. That's the one I always get, it's great. And the fried rice. It's not that much different from an actual Chinese. I'll give myself pass marks for this one. I'm going to tuck into this, get these lights off, because I've had to, 5-minute rule, I've had to put the lights on so I could film this cooking session, but I'm going to have to put them off because, yeah, the voltage is only sitting at 12.4. Like, if it carries on the way it has been during the night, it's going to go to like 11.5. I might have to run my engine again for a bit. But it's really not healthy for the van to do that. I did go for a little bit of a drive earlier just to obviously get it on the road, but it's not great. Hopefully it's going to be okay for the next couple of days whilst I wait on this battery getting delivered, because I need to get this sorted out. I want to get back on the road and get into Perth and explore. So fingers crossed. I'll see you then. Well, that's my in-van morning routine. If I'm parked somewhere where I can't exercise outside, or if it's really crappy weather, then I just do that in the van, nice and simple. I don't do it every day, but I've started to try and do it a little bit more often than I have been, especially for this road trip, just to make sure I've got plenty of energy and stuff for the day. It does make you feel better, of course it does. Makes you feel more organised. And I've got an adjustable kettlebell as well in the front. I haven't used that for a while though, but as we come into spring on this road trip, I will be using that as well, especially in the lead up to when I get to some mountains to hike. This road trip is going to go on for months now. I think it's quite clear. My initial plan to do it in 3 months is never going to happen. I mean, you could do it, of course, but not with all the filming and the meetings that I have with like local businesses and things of that nature, and obviously booking things for myself too. It's growing arms and legs. So, but you know what? I'm not bothered. I'm not fussed at all. If it takes 6 months, 7 months, I don't care. At the end of the day, this is my life. I'm living in this van. I'm doing it to travel and to see new things. And even though I've been in my van for over almost 3.5 years now, there's been so many things on this road trip already, only about 8 weeks into it, that I hadn't seen or done before. So yeah, long may that continue. No, I think it's going to be I think this series is going to go well into the summer, if not slightly beyond, to be perfectly honest. I mean, the west coast is going to take longer because of all the peninsulas as well. So yeah, it should be interesting. Well, the new battery should be here in around about 3 hours, and then it's just a case of getting everything out the back, under the bed, deconstructing the sort of homemade box that the current raw cells are in. You know, I've got to disconnect everything correctly as well. So I need to get stuck into that. And yeah, we'll just take it from there. I mean, I did pull off the BMS anyway because it was just doing my nutting, to be perfectly honest, with all the alarming and all the rest of it. What I've been doing is I go and check it in the morning, check that the batteries are balanced, making sure they've all got the same voltage, and providing that they're balanced constantly when it's not charging, when it's charging. I keep checking it, so when I turn my engine on, I'll go and check the batteries, make sure they're charged, just doing it with a voltmeter. So I've had it off now for the last sort of couple of days. I just disconnected it because it was doing my nutting, to be honest. And you shouldn't do that, obviously. Lithium batteries should have a battery management system attached to them, but these ones are, you know, they're dying and they're getting replaced anyway. So I've just been manually checking the balance and keeping an eye on the voltages the traditional way, and they've been fine, to be fair. They're just not holding a voltage. That's the problem across the 4 of them, so they're definitely dying. So hopefully, yeah, it'll be here in a few hours, and then yeah, get that battery out, get the new one in. Let's see how that goes. I'll fast forward to that time now. So now it's time to take all of this apart. This is actually gonna come off completely because I've got new 2-aught 35mm squared cables to go onto here with my Victron Smart Shot as well. They're already disconnected the BMS system here, the Dali BMS, sort of Chinese one. One of the annoying things is people that did build it before, they use loads of different sort of types of screws instead of your sort of standard Phillips and screwdriver. There's this one here's like the stars. These ones that I've just taken out there are squares. So needed all the bits for all the different types, which is a bit of a faff, to be honest. That's that size. Underneath, I'll have to get to that one on the top. That's in the way. I need a wee ratchet for that, maybe. Let's see if that'll work. Let's see if this will get in there. No, that's going to be a pain. Come on, I wonder if I could just take that all off. See, the difficulty I'm having is the fridge is right here, so I can't get into this gap to get in there. So it's, you know, the battery and that would have been installed first, so it's quite difficult to sort of get to. I might just take this whole panel off, which will bring that BMS with it. That'll probably be the easiest way, I think. Right. There we go. So that's the old BMS I had with the Bluetooth, and again it's lasted me it's been 4 years since it was put in. It lasted me over 3, and the couple that had it a year as well, so it's done pretty good, to be fair. And that's the 4 lithium LifePo batteries in there, and I'm assuming that the heating pads were there at the bottom as well. So now we're going to take the bus bars off and get the batteries out. Right, they should just simply come out now. And you can see here, these are the heating pads, just homemaders, but you know what, they did a job, to be fair, they did a job. This is the thing, folks, when you're buying a van that's been handmade by someone else, it can be a bit of a challenge because you didn't build it. So trying to figure out everything, trying to figure everything out when things go wrong can be a bit tricky. It's not like buying one from a company that build, bespoke camper vans and stuff. If anything goes wrong, they'll either fix it or they can talk you through it. You'll know how everything works, all professionally done. But as you can see, these are just handmade heating pads with basically a refrigerator heating sensor to either cool or heat as required at the set temperatures you set it at. And hand-drawn sort of labels and stuff. And don't get me wrong, it's been fine for me, but I think some people might struggle trying to figure these sort of things out as well, so just bear that in mind if you do build a handmade one. You want a decent handover and sort of instruction list if possible. I think I'm just going to break this. There we go. What's that? Right, so the next thing is to just I just want to get all of this sort of cleaned up next now. You can see all the crap in there. Get it all cleaned out before I stick the new battery in there. Right, so first things first, I need to install the bracket that this is going to sit in. So this is basically going to get screwed into the floor. I've got a thick positive cable as well. See, it was set up with two thinner cables, both the negative and the positive, coming from the 3000 watt inverter. It was set up with two thinner red cables coming from the positive and two thinner negatives, which we took off earlier. I've got thicker, you can see the difference. These are 2-aught AWG 95. I've got 95mm for the shunt and for the inverter. So this is the Victron Smart Shunt. I got the 1000 amp, 500 would have probably done, but I'm just going to stick with that. This is going to be really handy. It's going to give me a true accurate reading of the battery life, if you like, and I did get the temperature gauge for it as well, so it'll give me an accurate reading of the temperature of the batteries too. Really handy piece of kit. I've not used one before, but I thought if it seems I have to change, I may as well change and go all out and do a little bit better. But just bear in mind that these ports here, where you're going to be putting your terminal cables on, they're M10, and the battery that I've got are M8. So you have to have an M10 on one side and an M8 on the other. So to connect it from the battery terminal to the actual smart shunt itself. Anyway, let's get it installed. Right, so it's now time for the battery. Bolts. Right, that is. It weighs about 50 kilos, so it's not light. So the battery I've gone for is the Fogster Drift 620 amp hour, which is actually double the amp hourage of my current one, which is 310, just slightly more. And it's essentially got lithium life post cells like mine in it. You've got your positive and negative terminals. But inside there's also a BMS set up for the battery as well, a battery management system, and it has heating automated as well. Right, what I'm going to try and do here is, because I'm going to have to slide this in, I don't have an opportunity to just pick it up because I can't get above it. What I'm going to try and do is put this up with that. I'm just going to try and slide it over with the mat. There we go. And these handles down. There we go. So that's the battery in place. Right, so head torch on, so that is the battery essentially in place and installed. Now I just need to connect it to the smart shunt, get all the positive connections sorted, and then we're good, really. Test it out, get it all set up in the apps, and then we're good to go. Firmware's updated, and then we have a smart shunt. Perfect, so now I just need to go in and change some of the parameters as well. You can see the voltage there. So yeah, you can see all the parameters, see the voltage there, 13.17. State of charge is at 100%, which is great, but I need to go and change some of the first use sort of setups and things like that, so I'm just gonna go and do that just now. Well folks, I have power again. The lights are going on! Thank God for that. Now, I did say that the battery was at 100%. That's not accurate. When I actually open up my Drift app, it says 50%. So I spoke to the guys at Fogster Drift. They were really, really helpful actually. Came back quickly just by email. And I'd basically just need to take the van for a long run to get it fully charged, to get it up to the amps. They gave me advice on what I needed to set it up for the Victron Smart Shunt, and obviously my lithium LifePro batteries, what I needed to put in to the Victron app and all that kind of stuff to match up with the Fogster. And I just need to go and give it a good run essentially and get it charged. Now, it's halfway charged, that's what it says at the moment, but it might not totally be accurate. But if that is the case, then I've got over 300 amp hours left to charge. Now, my split charge, my Victron split charge is only a 30 amp. So when the engine's running, it will charge 30 amps per hour. So it's about 10 hours to get it from half to full of driving. I don't think it's going to take that long, but I'm going to go and have to take it for a big drive. Probably over the next sort of couple of days, and then I can finish up back in Perth and start this part of the coast. But it has made me think, actually, and I might not do it before the end of this road trip, but I might put in an electric hookup power point somewhere, especially with a battery that size. I've never used one before. 310 amp was fine for charging, really, and keeping it charged generally. But if this battery goes down to 50%, like I said, it's going to take a long time to charge with the engine. So it would be good sometimes just to pop into a campsite just to charge it up overnight, and obviously keep it charged using that when I'm using power in the van whilst I'm there and stuff like that. I just don't know how I would do it, because obviously on this wall where my LPG section is on the outside, obviously this is all built, it's all insulated, it's all vapour barriered, etc. I don't fancy getting into there and disturbing that. Maybe I could put it on the back doors, because that would be much easier to strip back. And obviously I've never fitted one before, so I need to figure out how to do it as well. If anyone's got any good links for stuff like that, drop it in the comments for me and I'll check out the video. But that is something I might consider just with this size of battery, because obviously I use quite a lot of power anyway, and it is going to take a long time to charge when I'm driving and to keep it sort of topped up. So yeah, that's definitely worth a consideration. But the Fogster Drift guys also did say too that once you've got it fully charged, as you're using it and discharging it, what will probably happen is the BMS system, it'll take a few charge cycles to actually become accurate. But once you've taken it to 100% and it's properly at 100%, I can synchronise the Victron Smart Shunt app. That comes out the box at 100%. It wasn't reading the battery at 100%, but then I can synchronise it from there, and you'll notice that there will be a bit of a difference until there's been a good few sort of cycles through it, and the BMS sort of learns, if you like, how the battery's discharging and charging and things like that. So, but yeah, I'm dead happy. I'm back on the road essentially. So I'm going to go away and drive for the next couple of days, but I'll see you back at Perth as I continue my drive around the entire coast of mainland Scotland. And I'm going to go to a couple of places I've never been to before in Perth, so I'll see you there. Hey folks, well, my journey around the entire coast of mainland Scotland has finally brought me here, Tayside, and more specifically the city of Perth. Now, I've spent quite a lot of time in Perth over the years, but there's two things in particular that I've never seen, and I want to go and see them before I head further along the coast to what I would regard as my home city of Dundee. And first up on that list is the Stone of Destiny. Inside the Perth Museum sits one of the most important objects in Scottish history, the Stone of Destiny. For centuries, a simple block of sandstone was used in the coronation of Scottish kings. Monarchs would sit above it as they were crowned, linking their rule directly to Scotland's ancient past. But in 1296, during the Wars of Independence, Edward I of England removed the stone from Scotland and took it south to Westminster Abbey, where it was placed beneath the coronation chair used for English and later British monarchs. There it remained for centuries, until Christmas Day 1950. 4 Scottish students broke into Westminster Abbey and removed the 24-stone slab under cover of darkness. Moving something that heavy was no small task, and transporting it out of London required careful planning and determination. The stone was eventually taken back to Scotland and left at Arbroath Abbey, a place deeply tied to Scotland's Declaration of Independence. It was later returned to London, but in 1996, the Stone of Destiny was officially brought back to Scotland. Even today, its role continues. In 2023, it travelled once again to Westminster Abbey for the coronation of Charles III before returning here to Perth. Today, the stone rests here in Perth, not far from Scone, where Scottish kings were once crowned. After centuries of conflict, travel and symbolism, it has finally returned close to the place where Scotland's monarchs were first crowned. Now, unfortunately, there's no photography, filming, photographs, anything inside the Stone of Destiny exhibition, but it was fantastic. There's an immersive sort of animated experience that you get before it, talking about the story of the Stone of Destiny, and then you go inside the room and you see the Stone of Destiny itself, and it was quite awe-inspiring, I must admit. Quite fascinating, but it was just amazing seeing the stone. Highly recommend you visit, and please leave a donation if you do. Now, of course, another incredibly famous and important artefact is also in the Perth Museum, and that is the last letter that Mary Queen of Scots ever wrote, only hours before her execution. Among the artefacts on display here is something remarkably personal. This final letter written by Mary Queen of Scots. She wrote it on the evening of the 7th of February 1587, just hours before her execution at Fotheringhay Castle. Addressed to Henry III of France, the letter was written in French, the language Mary had spoken since her childhood at the French court. In it, she asked the king to look out for her royal servants and ensure that they were cared for after her death, a final act of concern for those who had remained faithful to her. Mary's life was one of the most dramatic in Scottish history, a queen forced to abdicate, imprisoned for nearly 19 years and ultimately executed far from her own country. But her story didn't end there. Her son, James VI, and hence the first, would go on to become the first monarch to rule both Scotland and England, uniting the crowns in 1603. And every British monarch since, including today's royal family, traces their lineage back to him. So even in death, Mary's legacy continued to shape the course of the monarchy for centuries to come. Well, what a brilliant little museum that was. Free entry. Like I say, you do have options to leave a donation if you like as well, and I would always encourage anyone visiting a museum in Scotland, they are all free, to please leave a donation, because that's what keeps them up and running ultimately. But before I head back to the van to continue along the coast to Dundee, I'm going to go and check out one place I've never been before. All my time I've spent in Perth over the years, and that is the Black Watch Castle and Museum. Now, I did actually contact one of my friends I used to work with, Colin, who's from Perth, and he served in the Black Watch for over 23 years, I think it was, to see if he would come along with me today, and he would have loved to have done so, but unfortunately he has to work. He's not going to be with me today, but I'm really looking forward to seeing this. It's not only one of the most historically important regiments in Scotland. In terms of the army, it's one of the most elite, that's for sure. And with a very distinctive tartan. Inside these walls lies the story of one of Scotland's most famous regiments, the Black Watch. The regiment was first raised in 1725, when companies of Highland soldiers were recruited to help maintain order in the Highlands following the Jacobite uprisings. Their job was to patrol the region and enforce the authority of the British government, earning the nickname Am Fricadan Du, the Black Watch. The name came partly from the dark tartan they wore, the government tartan, now recognised around the world as the Black Watch tartan. What began as a local force soon became something far larger. As Britain's influence expanded across the world, the Black Watch found themselves serving far beyond Scotland, in North America, India, Africa, and across the growing British Empire. Over time, the regiment developed a reputation for discipline, resilience, and formidable fighting ability. That reputation was tested again and again during the 20th century. In the First World War, Black Watch soldiers fought in some of the most brutal battles on the Western Front. One of the most famous and costly came in 1915 at the Battle of Loos. Ordered to advance across open ground under intense fire, the regiment pushed forward despite devastating losses. Their bravery became legendary, but the price paid was enormous. The Black Watch continued to serve through the Second World War, fighting in Europe, North Africa and the Far East, before adapting again in the decades that followed. Like many historic regiments, their role changed with the world around them. In 2006, the Black Watch became part of the Royal Regiment of Scotland, continuing their traditions as the 3rd Battalion. Soldiers from the regiment have since served in modern conflicts, including Iraq and Afghanistan, carrying forward a legacy built over nearly 3 centuries. Outside in the memorial gardens here are the names etched into stone, and they tell another part of the story. They honour those who served in the regiment but never returned, from distant battlefields of the past to conflicts of our own lifetime. It's a reminder that history here isn't just about uniforms and medals, it's ultimately about people and the generations who carried the Black Watch name into battle. Well, you know what, I'm really glad I did that. It's so well laid out and beautifully presented. I'm really glad I did that. You know, it goes through the history of the regiment's conception, and obviously through the sort of growth of the British Empire, Crimea, Egypt, India, all that kind of stuff, and then on to, say, the First World War, Second World War and post-war as well. It was really good. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad I went. And the staff were lovely as well. We got speaking at the till, and put it this way, I've got another new subscriber to my channel. And the other member of staff, sorry, I forgot to get their names, already followed me. So I got a nice recommendation as well, which was lovely. So hopefully they'll have a wee chuckle when they see this part anyway. But that's me. I would love to showcase more of Perth. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time here, and some of you might be wondering, where's the Hermitage? You know, and don't get me wrong, I love that walk, but it's quite, you know, far inland up towards Dunkeld. So I'll do that another time, make that part of a different episode. But now we're going to head along the coast of the River Tay towards what I regard as my home city, as I said previously, Dundee. And it is a city that I absolutely love, and I'm looking forward to showcasing it to you. So join me next week as I head into the city I called home for over 20 years, the city of discovery, the city of Dundee. Like and subscribe for more van life adventures.